She was just a poor waitress, exhausted and invisible, secretly slipping food to a homeless man no one wanted inside the restaurant. People laughed at her. The manager warned her. But that single act of kindness would uncover a truth so shocking, it would change her life forever. The bell above the restaurant door jingled nonstop that evening, its tired sound matching the exhaustion in Lily Carter's bones. She had been on her feet since dawn, moving between greasy tables and impatient customers, her apron stained with coffee and sauce. The diner was small, the kind of place people only noticed when they were hungry and in a hurry. The walls were yellowed with age, and the air smelled of fried onions and burnt toast. Lily had learned to breathe shallowly during her shifts so the smell wouldn't make her nauseous. She was 23, living in a tiny rented room above a laundromat, and every dollar she earned went straight to rent, bills, and groceries. There was no safety net for her. If she lost this job, she'd lose everything. That thought followed her every day like a shadow. "Table 5 needs more coffee," her manager, Rick, snapped from behind the counter without even looking at her. "I'm on it," Lily replied quickly, forcing energy into her voice. As she refilled the coffee cups, laughter erupted from a group of men near the window. They were regulars, loud, careless, and cruel in the casual way that came from never having to worry about tomorrow. "That guy's back again," one of them said, jerking his thumb toward the door. "Smells like the street walked in." Lily glanced over. Near the entrance stood a man in a worn coat, too thin for the winter chill. His beard was unkempt, his hair tangled, but his eyes were calm, almost gentle. He hesitated just inside the doorway, as if unsure whether he was allowed to exist in this space. "Hey," Rick shouted. "I told you before, you can't come in here unless you're buying something." The man nodded slowly. "I understand," he said quietly. His voice wasn't slurred or aggressive. It was steady. "I just wanted to ask if there was any work I could do. Dishes, sweeping, anything." Rick scoffed. "This isn't a charity. Get out." The laughter from the table grew louder. Someone tossed a napkin at the man's feet. Lily felt something twist painfully in her chest. She had seen him before, lingering outside, never begging, never causing trouble, just existing. The man turned to leave, shoulders hunched, dignity barely held together. Lily acted before fear could stop her. "Sir," she said softly, stepping toward him. "Wait." Rick shot her a sharp look. "Lily, don't." She ignored him and lowered her voice. "Come back in 10 minutes. Around the side door." The man's eyes met hers, surprise flickering across his face. He nodded once. "Thank you," he said, as if she had already given him something priceless. Her heart pounded as she returned to work. Her hands shook while carrying plates. She knew the risk. Rick had fired people for less. But hunger was something she understood too well. She remembered nights when she'd gone to bed with nothing but water in her stomach, pretending it was enough. 10 minutes later, Lily wrapped a burger, fries, and a slice of pie in foil. She added a cup of soup, her hands moving fast, her eyes darting around. When Rick turned his back, she slipped out the side door. The man was waiting, standing in the dim alley under a flickering light. "I don't have much," Lily said, pressing the bag into his hands. "But it's hot." He stared at the food like it might disappear. "You shouldn't do this," he said gently. "You could get in trouble." She smiled sadly. "Some things are worth it." As he ate, slowly, gratefully, Lily felt something warm spread through her chest. She didn't know it yet, but this small moment, this quiet act of kindness, had just set her life on a path she could never have imagined. The next morning, Lily woke before her alarm, the gray light slipping through the thin curtains of her rented room. Her body ached the way it always did, but her mind was restless. The image of the homeless man sitting in the alley, carefully unwrapping the foil like it held something sacred, replayed over and over in her head. She wondered if he had slept somewhere warm. She wondered if he would come back. As she dressed for work, she checked her phone again, half expecting a message from Rick telling her not to bother coming in. There was nothing. No missed calls. No angry texts. A small wave of relief washed over her, followed quickly by guilt. Relief felt selfish when she knew someone else was still struggling just to survive. The diner was already busy when she arrived. Plates clattered, coffee machines hissed, and the smell of grease clung to the air. Lily tied her apron, took a steady breath, and stepped into the familiar chaos. She moved on autopilot, greeting customers with a polite smile, taking orders, refilling drinks. But her eyes kept drifting toward the door. By mid-morning, the regulars had settled into their usual seats. The same group of men sat by the window, laughing too loudly, talking about things Lily could never relate to: vacations, new cars, expensive dinners. One of them noticed her glancing outside. "Looking for your friend?" he said with a smirk. Lily pretended not to hear him. She focused on wiping down the counter, her jaw tight. Rick stood nearby, watching her more closely than usual. She could feel it. One wrong move, and she knew she'd be done. Hours passed. No sign of him. Her break finally came, and Lily stepped outside, the cold air biting at her cheeks. The sidewalk was damp from an earlier drizzle, reflecting the dull sky above. She scanned the street, her heart sinking a little when she didn't see him. Then she spotted him sitting a little farther down, near a closed storefront. He was hunched forward, hands wrapped around a paper cup, his shoulders trembling slightly in the cold. Without thinking, Lily walked toward him. "You're back," she said softly. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face before easing into a gentle smile. "I hoped I might see you again." She sat beside him on the low concrete ledge, ignoring the chill seeping through her uniform. "Did you eat okay last night?" "Yes," he replied. "It was the best meal I've had in a long time. Not just because of the food." She understood what he meant. "I'm Lily." "Henry," he said. "Thank you, Lily. Truly." They sat in silence for a moment, the noise of passing cars filling the space between them. Then Henry spoke again. "You shouldn't risk your job for me." Lily let out a small, humorless laugh. "I risk my job every day just by being poor," she said. "One mistake, one bad week, and I'm done anyway." Henry studied her, his eyes thoughtful. "You carry a lot for someone so young." She shrugged. "Life doesn't really give you a choice." Before she could stop herself, Lily stood and said, "Wait here." She returned a few minutes later with a small bag, toast, eggs, and a banana she'd tucked into her pocket. Henry hesitated. "You don't have to." "I know," she said. "But I want to." He accepted it, his hands shaking slightly. "You're a rare kind of person, Lily." Back inside, Rick cornered her almost immediately. "I saw you," he said quietly, his tone sharp. "You keep this up, and I won't warn you again." Lily met his gaze. "I understand." But she didn't stop. Days turned into weeks. Henry became a quiet part of her routine. He never asked for more than she could give. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes Lily just sat with him during her break, sharing silence. The mocking never stopped. Customers made jokes. Some refused to eat if they saw Henry nearby. Once, someone spilled a drink near him on purpose, laughing as he apologized for being in the way. Lily's hands clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms. "You don't deserve this," she whispered to him afterward. Henry shook his head. "People show you who they are when they think no one is watching." One afternoon, a woman in an expensive coat paused as she left the diner. She watched Henry from across the street, her expression unreadable. Lily noticed but thought nothing of it. Another time, a man in a tailored suit sat at the counter longer than necessary, his eyes following Henry with curiosity rather than disgust. Lily felt uneasy, but again, she dismissed it. Then one day, Henry didn't show up. Lily checked outside every chance she got. Her chest tightened with worry. What if something had happened? What if she had assumed he'd always be there? The next day, still nothing. On the third day, Lily was refilling coffee when a sleek black car pulled up outside the diner. It looked wildly out of place among the rusted vehicles and cracked pavement. Two men stepped out, both wearing dark suits. They scanned the diner before one of them pointed. Rick stiffened. "What is this about?" he demanded as they walked in. "We're looking for Lily Carter," one of the men said calmly. Lily felt the room spin. Every conversation seemed to stop. She swallowed hard and raised her hand. "That's me." The man smiled politely. "Our employer would like to speak with you." "Employer?" Lily echoed, confusion battling fear. "Yes," he said. "It concerns a man you've been helping." Lily's heart pounded. Had she broken the law? Was Henry in trouble? She nodded slowly. "Okay." As she followed them out, her hands trembling, she had no idea that the truth waiting for her was about to turn her entire world upside down. The ride in the black car felt unreal, like Lily had stepped out of her life and into someone else's. The seats were soft, the interior smelled faintly of leather, and the city outside the tinted windows blurred past her. She sat stiffly, hands folded in her lap, her heart pounding so hard she was sure the men beside her could hear it. No one spoke. Lily tried to steady her breathing, but her thoughts ran wild. Had she done something illegal by giving away food? Was Henry hurt? Arrested? Had someone complained? She replayed every moment in her head, every plate she'd slipped into a bag, every warning Rick had given her. "I'm going to lose my job," she finally whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. One of the men glanced at her through the rear-view mirror. His expression softened slightly. "You're not in trouble, Miss Carter." That didn't calm her at all. The car slowed and turned into a long driveway lined with tall trees. Lily's eyes widened as a massive glass and steel building came into view, gleaming under the pale afternoon sun. It looked nothing like the world she knew. Everything about it screamed wealth, power, importance. The car stopped. "Please come with us," one of the men said, opening her door. Lily stepped out on shaky legs. Her worn shoes felt painfully out of place against the polished stone beneath her feet. As they walked inside, the air changed, cool, clean, quiet. People in expensive suits moved with purpose, barely noticing her, yet somehow she felt more seen than ever before. They led her into an elevator that climbed silently, floor numbers flashing past too quickly for her to process. When the doors finally opened, she was guided down a hallway toward a large wooden door. The man knocked once, then opened it. "Sir," he said respectfully. "She's here." Lily stepped inside. The office was enormous, filled with natural light pouring in through floor-to-ceiling windows. A city skyline stretched endlessly beyond the glass. There was a large desk, shelves lined with books, and artwork that looked like it belonged in a museum. And standing near the window was Henry. For a moment, Lily didn't recognize him. He was clean-shaven, his hair neatly styled, wearing a tailor dark suit that fit him perfectly. His posture was straight, confident. He looked powerful, important. Nothing like the quiet man who sat on the curb holding a paper cup. Her breath caught in her throat. "Henry," she whispered. He turned, and when he smiled, it was the same gentle smile she knew. "Hello, Lily." Her legs felt weak. What is this place?" The men quietly exited, closing the door behind them, leaving Lily alone with him. Henry gestured toward a chair. "Please sit." She didn't sit right away. "You're not homeless," she said slowly, the realization crashing over her. "You were never homeless." Henry nodded.
No.
"I wasn't." "Then why?" Her voice trembled, a mix of confusion, embarrassment, and something that felt dangerously close to betrayal. "Why let me think you were starving? Why let people treat you like that?" Henry's expression softened, but there was sadness in his eyes. "Because I needed to know something," he said quietly. "And the only way to know was to experience the world without my name, without my money." He walked toward his desk and picked up a framed photograph. Lily caught a glimpse of a woman smiling beside him, her eyes full of life. "My wife died 3 years ago," he said. "She was kind, fiercely kind. She believed that how people treat the least powerful among them says everything about who they are." He set the frame down gently. "After she passed, I lost faith. In people. In myself. I built companies, employed thousands, donated millions, but I didn't know if any of it mattered." Lily swallowed hard. "So, I disappeared," Henry continued. "I dressed as a man with nothing. No status. No protection. I went where people thought no one important was watching." Her mind flashed back to the insults, the laughter, the way people avoided even looking at him. "And most people failed," he said simply. "They mocked me, ignored me, treated me like I was invisible or worse." Lily felt tears sting her eyes. "I didn't know," she said again, her voice barely audible. "I swear if I had." Henry raised a hand gently. "That's exactly the point, Lily. You didn't know. And you helped me anyway." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and saw not a trick or a test, but a man who had been deeply wounded, searching for proof that goodness still existed. "You risked your job," he said. "You endured ridicule. You gave when you had almost nothing yourself." Lily's hands curled into fists. "I just fed someone who was hungry." Henry smiled. "That's not just anything." He took a seat across from her. "I own several restaurant chains, food companies, supply networks, and I'm making changes, real ones. Fair wages, community programs. No one turned away hungry. But I need people who understand why that matters." He met her eyes. "I need people like you." Lily stared at him, stunned. "I'm just a waitress." "You're a woman with integrity," Henry corrected. "And I'd like to offer you a job." Her heart skipped.
A job.
"Yes," he said. "Training, education, a salary that allows you to live without fear. You'd start working with my community outreach division. Eventually, if you want management." The words felt unreal, like a language she didn't speak. "Why me?" Henry didn't hesitate. "Because when no one was watching, you chose kindness." Silence filled the room. Lily thought of her tiny apartment, the constant anxiety, the nights she'd gone to bed hungry herself. She thought of the girl she'd been forced to become just to survive. And then she thought of the man she'd fed in an alley. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted softly. Henry smiled, warm and reassuring. "You already have." Tears slipped down Lily's cheeks, and for the first time in her life, they weren't from exhaustion or fear, but from the overwhelming realization that one small act of compassion had opened a door she never knew existed. The weeks that followed felt like Lily was living inside a dream she was afraid to wake up from. Every morning, she still reached for her old uniform out of habit, then stopped herself, her heart racing as she remembered that her life had shifted. Instead of the diner's grease-stained walls, she now walked into bright offices filled with quiet focus and soft conversations. It was overwhelming in ways she hadn't expected. On her first day, Lily stood in front of the building for a long moment, smoothing her borrowed blazer, her hands trembling. She felt like an imposter. Everyone else looked confident, polished, like they belonged there. She wondered how many of them would laugh if they knew she had once counted coins just to buy bread. Henry met her in the lobby. "You made it," he said with an encouraging smile. "I almost turned around 3 times," Lily admitted. "That means you care," he replied. "Come on. I'll introduce you to the team." The people she met were kind, but Lily still felt out of place. Meetings were filled with words she didn't understand at first: budgets, logistics, outreach strategies. She took notes furiously, afraid of missing something important. At night, she went home exhausted in a different way than before. This tiredness came from thinking, learning, stretching herself beyond what she thought she could handle. There were moments when she nearly quit. One afternoon, after stumbling through a presentation and feeling the heat of embarrassment crawl up her neck, Lily locked herself in the bathroom and cried silently. She stared at her reflection, barely recognizing the woman looking back. "I don't belong here," she whispered. Later that day, Henry found her sitting alone in a quiet conference room. "You're quiet," he said gently. "I'm failing," Lily replied. "Everyone else knows what they're doing. I don't even know how to speak like them." Henry leaned against the table. "Do you know why I asked you to be here?" She shrugged. "Because I fed you." "No," he said softly. "Because you saw a human being where others saw a problem. Skills can be taught. Compassion can't." His words settled deep inside her. Lily straightened her shoulders. "Then I'll learn," she said. "I promise." And she did. Day by day, Lily grew more confident. She learned how the company worked, how decisions were made, and how policies affected real people. She visited shelters and community kitchens funded by Henry's foundation. Everywhere she went, she saw reflections of herself, people working hard, still one emergency away from losing everything. She spoke up in meetings, her voice shaky at first, then stronger. She told stories instead of reciting numbers. She reminded people that behind every statistic was a face, a life. They listened, but not everyone was happy about her presence. Whispers started quietly, then grew louder. Some employees questioned why a former waitress had been given such an opportunity. Others suggested she was only there because Henry felt guilty, or worse, because of something inappropriate. Lily overheard the rumors one evening and felt her stomach drop. The old fear returned, sharp and familiar. That night, she barely slept. The next morning, she knocked on Henry's office door. "I can't do this," she said as soon as she stepped inside. "People think I don't deserve to be here. Maybe they're right." Henry's expression hardened, not with anger toward her, but toward the injustice of it all. "Sit down," he said. She did. "I expected this," he continued. "When you change the rules, people get uncomfortable. But I won't allow anyone to question your worth." "I don't want special treatment," Lily said quickly. "I just want to earn my place." "You already have," Henry replied firmly. "But if you want proof, I'll give it to you." That afternoon, Henry called a company-wide meeting. Lily stood at the back, her heart pounding as Henry addressed the room. "Some of you have questions about why Lily is here," he said calmly. "Let me be clear. She earned her position through integrity, courage, and empathy, qualities this company needs more of. Anyone who has a problem with that is free to leave." The room was silent. Lily's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever defended her like that before. After that day, the whispers faded. Respect replaced suspicion. Lily worked harder than ever, determined to prove Henry right. Their relationship changed too. They talked more, not just about work, but about life. Henry spoke of his wife, of the emptiness that had driven him to disappear. Lily shared her past, the nights she cried herself to sleep, the dreams she'd buried because survival came first. One evening, after a long day, they walked together through a quiet park near the office. "You know," Lily said hesitantly, "sometimes I feel guilty. Like I was rewarded for being kind, while so many others who are kind never get this chance." Henry stopped walking and looked at her. "This isn't a reward," he said. "It's a responsibility. And you're using it to lift others. That's what matters." Lily nodded, her chest tight with emotion. As weeks turned into months, she no longer felt like an outsider. She felt purposeful, strong, useful in a way she never had before. Yet deep inside, Lily knew her journey wasn't finished. The biggest change wasn't the job, the money, or the new world she'd entered. It was the way she had begun to see herself. And that, more than anything, scared her because it meant there was no going back. The grand opening of the diner happened on a crisp morning, the kind where the air felt clean and full of possibility. Lily stood across the street for a moment, staring at the familiar building she once knew so well. It looked different now. Fresh paint covered the old, cracked walls. The windows were clear and bright, and a new sign hung proudly above the entrance. But beneath all the changes, Lily could still feel the ghost of who she used to be, tired, afraid, and invisible. She took a slow breath and crossed the street. Inside, the diner buzzed with warmth and energy. The smell of fresh coffee and warm bread filled the air. The tables were full, not just with customers, but with laughter. There was no tension, no sharp voices barking orders. The staff moved confidently, smiling at one another. It felt alive in a way the old diner never had. Henry stood near the counter, talking with one of the cooks. When he saw Lily, his face softened. "You're quiet," he said as she joined him. "Nervous?" She smiled faintly. "I was a waitress here once. I was scared every single day." "And now?" he asked. She looked around, watching a young server gently set a plate in front of an elderly man who clearly hadn't eaten well in a long time. No one shooed him away. No one stared. "Now," Lily said, "I feel proud." This diner wasn't just reopened. It was reimagined. Under Henry's direction and Lily's guidance, it had become a place where no one was turned away hungry. There was a quiet policy known only to the staff. If someone couldn't pay, they still ate. No questions. No shame. As the ribbon-cutting ceremony began, people gathered outside. Locals, employees, community leaders. Lily spotted familiar faces. People who used to sit in the diner mocking others, now watching in silence. She also saw faces she remembered from the street, people who had once stood where Henry had stood. Henry stepped up to the small podium. "This place," he began, "taught me something important. Not about business, but about humanity. It showed me how easily we forget that kindness is a choice." His eyes found Lily. This diner exists the way it does today, because one person chose compassion when it cost her something. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lily's throat tightened as Henry reached for her hand. "Lily Carter reminded me who I wanted to be, and who we can be if we choose." Applause filled the air. Lily felt her cheeks flush, her eyes burning with tears. She had never been comfortable being seen, but this felt different. This felt earned. Later that afternoon, when the crowd thinned and the diner settled into its new rhythm, Lily slipped outside. She stood in the same spot where she had once nervously scanned the street, hoping Henry would show up safe. "Penny for your thoughts?" Henry's voice came from behind her. She smiled without turning around. "I was thinking about how close I was to losing everything back then." "And instead, you found yourself," he said. She faced him. I didn't plan any of this. I just didn't want someone to go hungry. Henry nodded. That's how the most important things begin. Their bond had deepened over time, slowly and naturally. It wasn't built on grand gestures or power, but on shared values and quiet conversations. They understood each other's wounds without needing to explain them. I used to believe kindness was a weakness, Henry admitted softly. The world punished it too often. And now? Lily asked. Now I believe it's the strongest thing we have. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in soft gold, Lily walked back inside. She watched the staff move with confidence. She listened to the hum of conversation. This place had become a symbol, not of charity, but of dignity. Later that evening, after the last customer left and the doors were locked, Lily sat alone in a booth. She ran her fingers along the tabletop, memories flooding back. She remembered the exhaustion, the fear, the way she had once believed this was all her life would ever be. Henry slid into the booth across from her. You okay? She laughed quietly. I was just thinking if I could go back and talk to the girl I was back then, I'd tell her not to be afraid. What would she say? Henry asked. Lily smiled sadly. She wouldn't believe me. Henry reached across the table, gently taking her hand. She'd believe you eventually. In that moment, Lily understood something profound. Her life hadn't changed because she met a wealthy man. It had changed because she stayed true to herself when it mattered most. She had chosen kindness over fear, humanity over indifference. And that single choice had rippled outward, touching lives she would never fully know. As they stood to leave, Lily glanced once more around the diner. This place, once a symbol of her struggle, had become proof that even the smallest acts could reshape the future. Not just hers, but everyone's. And that was the shocking truth she never saw coming. That feeding a stranger didn't just change his life. It revealed her own. If this story touched your heart, remember this. Kindness is never wasted. You never truly know who you're helping or how far one small act can travel. A single meal, a moment of compassion, a choice made without expecting anything in return, can change lives in ways we may never fully understand. Lily didn't have money, power, or security. All she had was a good heart, and that was enough to rewrite her destiny. So the next time you see someone in need, don't look away. The smallest kindness you offer today might become the greatest turning point of your life tomorrow. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful, life-changing stories, because sometimes the most ordinary people create the most extraordinary miracles.